The Partial Breakaway Podcast with your hosts Nick and Junior and producer Vince, bringing you elite fantasy hockey information to help you win your fantasy leagues and win at life.
Episode 72. All right, welcome to the Partial Breakaway Fantasy Hockey Podcast for all your Dynasty, Keeper, and Salary Cap Fantasy Hockey Leagues. Follow us on our social medias, like, subscribe, and rate our content. I've got Nick to my right, Vince to his right. I am Junior, and we are ready for another jam-packed episode.
I thought you were going to say, like, Nick to my right and
Vince
Vince
to my further right.
I thought for sure that's what you're going to. But you actually said it professionally and properly.
Yes.
So I was very proud of that.
Well, you guys,
Did you go to the same school that Vince went to last week for the media school?
I did.
There you go.
The self-taught school.
Paying off, guys.
Last episode before the trade deadline, right?
Ooh.
Trade deadline
I like it.
Friday, no?
I like it. It's actually on Friday, yes.
Friday.
Oh, yes.
It is on
Half-day
Friday.
Fridays are the best.
Yeah. And
Who? Half days?
Yeah.
I'm in tax season.
you're working from home. Stop
I'm
it.
working from home, yeah. I'll have it on in the background. If my boss watches this, please don't worry about it. I'll still pay attention to my work.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
When the Winter Classic, remember we destroyed the NHL because nobody knew about it and like the marketing was poor. Did you know about the Stadium Series matchup between Detroit and Columbus?
I found out about it 3 days ago. Because I saw a tweet.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, no idea. Eh?
No.
No, they're still not doing good on the marketing aspect of it. They already announced next year's in Ohio.
Again?
Sorry, in Utah. Sorry.
In Utah?
Yeah, next year in Utah against the Vegas Golden Knights. They already announced it.
That's going to be fun.
But then they're not going to remind you about it until 2 days before.
But I'll give them benefit of the doubt this year just because it was the Four Nations right before it. So a lot of the marketing went into the Four Nations.
But I have to say, I actually followed along, and it was great, and it helps when like players add fuel to the fire. Like I don't know if it's because Larkin was called out after the first loss to Columbus this week, but he had like harsh words for the Ohio State Stadium, saying it's the ugliest stadium he's ever seen, and then he planted the Detroit Red Wings flag at the center ice after their practice. So
but he's a Michigan boy. That's why
he's a Michigan boy.
Michigan, Ohio State, they go back way back the rivalry, so it's normal for him to do.
And it was nice too because Meredith Gaudreau and Johnny Gaudreau Jr. led the team out to the ice. And all in all, it was such a great game. Controversy, game winner. To me, it was a high stick. Did you guys catch that? Or no?
No, I'm still thinking about Ohio State winning the Natty. But anyways.
Anyhow, for me, it was a high stick. Should have been called a high stick and should have been a power play for Detroit. But no call led to the goal. Big win by Columbus, who now surpassed and leaped Detroit for the first wildcard spot. All right, enough about that. Let's move on to more important things. What are we doing today?
It was a big game as well. Now that you mentioned
they played 2 games back.
They were tied in points. Yeah. And they were tied in games played. So this was basically...
It's a playoff game.
A 4-point game. Right?
Yep. And on so this week, what we are going to do is the usual odd man rush. In our rumblings, we've had like basically a pre-trade deadline in loose pucks. So we're going to go through all those trades. Then we have our usual waiver wire pickups, our partial breakaway league claims and drops. And lastly, we're going to discuss a little bit about the trades that did happen in the NHL this week and a few new names on the trade bait board are going around in the NHL, which should be interesting.
And during the whole thing, like we present the trades that happen in our fantasy leagues because they might have relevance in your fantasy league as well. Knowing, I find trades always fascinating, right? Knowing what the value of somebody might be one league to another might be different, but maybe you get some ideas for your own leagues as well. For me, that's always been the fun part about trading. And like fantasy, there's two great parts, or three actually great parts of fantasy: drafting, trading, and winning. Those are the three pillars of having fun in fantasy for me. So I think that we at least hit on all of those here.
And what's fun too about our fantasy trades is when Nick trades a Roope Hintz and then he has like 14 points in 3 games, you could just like tell him about it, you know?
I'll remind him.
Like the 4 points he had tonight.
Odd man rush.
All right, so this was my idea here to get Junior off of his game so I could take over the odd man rush. This is where we take news and notes, trends in the NHL, and turn them into 30-second takes that last 3 minutes.
Let's get that bell ready. Okay, Nick, you're up. Today, wow, Matthew Nyes with 0.1 seconds left on the clock. Go-ahead goal, which was a temporary go-ahead goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Pittsburgh Penguins in what was like a wild game.
Both goalies completely forgot to show up today, which was great for fantasy, unless you own the goalies. Sorry?
I benched Wool, so I was okay
Oh,
with it.
see, there you go. But I don't know if you actually watched that game. Tavares, they were down 4-3 to the Penguins. Tavares ties it up with a minute left, and then, or about 30 seconds left. Next face-off, Matthew Nyes just steals the puck, goes end to end. The clock is going down. The people on his bench are yelling, "Shoot!" And he takes a shot. It literally crosses the line at 0.1 seconds left. End of the period right there. It was great television. And then the third period started, and Pittsburgh scores right away 1 minute in. So, I mean, it was a crazy game. But fun game to watch.
How about Matthew Nyes, by the way? 40 points in 56 games so far this year.
So I was going to say, it's his third year in the NHL, but really his first one was what, 1 game played?
3.
3 games played. So this is his second year in the NHL. For a second year, sophomore season, he's doing very, very well. And it looks like he's going to continue progressing.
He's having a quiet, very good season.
23.7 shooting percentage. A little high, but still impressive. All right, Vince. I didn't think I would ever say these words that McDavid was struggling, but it's been 8 straight games without a point, 5-on-5. He's been outscored 10-0 over the last 6 games at 5-on-5. And after Saturday night versus Carolina, Oilers headed home. It was the first time Connor McDavid stepped foot in his house since February 7th. That's almost a month's worth because of the 4 nations and all that blah, blah, blah.
And credit to our listener Tasso for providing that stat as well.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a useless stat because that's an excuse. What do you
I'm glad how he asked me the question, but...
Is it an excuse or does it validate McDavid being, struggling? Let's
The
be
guy is
honest,
still,
struggling.
he's McJesus, but he's still...
I think what validates him being on this little cold streak is that in the past 3 years, every year he's averaged 94 games because of the playoffs. And if you go back to last year, it's even more.
4 nations.
Yeah, well, 4 nations. That's
On top of it.
like, I went back 2 years. So 2 years ago, they only played 12 playoff games. Last year, he played 82 games plus 25 playoff games. This year, 54 games he's played plus the 4 nations. So, I mean, superhuman he is, but at some point the human body still tells you that, you need some time off. So, I think I don't think it's valid that is because he was far from home for a month. I think it's just his body is the fatigue is catching up to his body with all the games played in the past few years. But am I worried? No. Is he going to come back? Yeah. Is he still going to be in top 3 scoring by the end of the season? Definitely.
It's going to take a 5-point game and he's back on track.
Exactly.
McDavid is McDavid.
Nick, on to you. These players are not struggling, but however, they are injured. Roman Yossi placed on IR. Adam Fox also placed on IR. Which of these hurts the most in terms of fantasy relevance, and who can we look at as possible replacements for each of them?
Well, I mean, both of these players, if you own them in fantasy, you're hurting right now. And, I mean, there's no replacing a Roman Yossi. There's no replacing a Adam Fox.
Imagine owning both.
And trading Hintz at the same time.
But how do you replace this type of production? I mean, Roman Yossi at the time that I was looking it up was 9th overall in our league in fantasy points. 9th overall for defensemen.
Wow.
So you want to talk about the fact that we have how many teams?
11
teams. We each have about 6 defensemen deep, 4 of them starting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 66 defensemen. He was 9th out of those 66 defensemen. He's top echelon no matter what. Fox, same thing. Top of the lineup player. You can't replace this kind of production. Now, he did not have a good year this year, but all of Nashville did not have a good year this year, right? He's a minus 26 if you care about plus minus, and he was only on a 59-point pace. 59-point pace is still pretty decent for a defenseman. Actually, it's very good for a defenseman.
It's very good.
The year before that, he had 85. If I'm somebody that owns Roman Yossi, I keep him, which I am keeping him, for next year because I expect Nashville to have a bounce back, which I think that you would agree with that, Vince, because we spoke about it a little bit earlier. And same for Fox. I'm expecting a bounce back from New York next year. New York started very poorly this year. Both these teams.
It's a little strange, that they're still in the hunt, but they've already decided we're selling off on some guys.
That's the way to do it. Like the Habs should listen.
Speaking of the Habs, more injured players and more of the same player being injured. Kirby Dach officially on IR with another knee injury, and Matthew Tkachuk of the Florida Panthers, as we all suspected and expected, is officially on long-term injured reserve. Vince, what is there to say about Kirby Dach? Does this officially X him for you? And in terms of Matthew Tkachuk, who do we see perhaps maybe getting a boost in production in his absence?
So for Kirby Dach, I think we all have to be in agreement that this was a failed attempt for Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens for bringing in a player who they thought could be their number 2 centerman. Like we were talking about before, we basically left Nazar to Chicago to pick up Kirby Dach.
Yeah, Nazar and Romanov.
Yeah, well, Romanov is not so. With the defense that are coming up, I'm not worried about Romanov. There was more Nazar, but even Nazar with Chicago hasn't been lighting it up. The only thing I can hope for Kirby Dach is that I'm hoping he goes in the path of Monahan. Remember, Monahan used to have... The only difference Monahan had huge years before he had that serious injury, and then it took him a while. And now look at him. As soon as he was with the Canadiens and now with Columbus, it seems like he's back on track. Not back on track to be that 80-point player he is, but still to be relevant enough. Relevant enough that he can pursue his NHL. So that's what I'm hoping for Kirby Dach. If I'm not mistaken, the same knee that he got.
They didn't specify.
No, they didn't specify.
It was the second. It was the other knee.
Yeah, so it's worrisome. As for Matthew Tkachuk, listen, for people who have him in their fantasy team, it's a blow. For that person who wrote the comment, it's because your fantasy team sucks. That's why you have no players going through 4 nations. Well, I hope you have Matthew Tkachuk, because look what happened. He got injured and he's not on your team anymore.
Yeah.
So
Vince is not petty at all. Not petty.
No. LTIR, but he'll be back for the playoffs. I mean, I'm not too worried about him.
Nick, you want to add something?
I just want to say on Kirby Dach, I think the top 6 center role is a thing of the past now. I think 2 knee injuries. I'm not saying that he won't recover. I'm holding out hope that he's going to continue being a top 6 player.
As a winger.
But as a winger.
Yeah, I think the center, you're right.
I think the center part has flown.
Yeah.
That ship has sailed. That bird has flown.
Yeah, but is there room for him on the wing with Montreal?
Well, Laine only has one more year. on his contract, and then after that, who knows if we're re-signing him.
Yeah.
And we don't have that many wingers coming up that are really top six other than Demidov.
Well, that's the only
who
one we
replaces
need.
Line.
Because you have Caulfield, Slavkovsky.
Newhook looks like a third liner,
Yeah.
right?
It'll be interesting.
But the dynamic of that line with Beck, I find is different than what it was
So-
with Doc.
But I think we should mention this because
It's a little bit more of a complete line. I find actually able to create more.
we're talking about who could take over for Kirby Doc as a second line center role. Well, it's Owen Beck so far. And
As of right now, yeah.
as of right now, it's Owen Beck, and he's looking pretty decent.
All right. Well, sticking with the Habs. Oh, I got to pull this up. Sorry about that. Lane Hudson, my boy.
Is he a number one defenseman, Junior?
I don't know. I didn't think he was. I thought he was a number one pairing defenseman. I didn't think he'd be a number one defenseman, but
He's
look,
trending that
it's
way.
just his
Let's
rookie
just say-
season, so I
let's just
don't
say
want to
he's
get
trending.
too excited, but he's trending that way. How about that? Okay, where was my little... Great. I missed it. Awesome. This is great. Great
You didn't take a
radio.
screenshot?
Like,
I did have it somewhere. Now I can't find it. So basically, you know what? I'm going to read up his stats. He's the first rookie defenseman since Nick Lidstrom in 1990, 1991 to put up 40 assists in less than 60 games. That is some wild stats.
Let's repeat that. Say that again.
Lane Hudson, and I hope I'm right because I'm not reading it off anything, but I was so impressed by it that that I remember. Okay, here we go. So Lane Hudson has 4 goals, 42 assists, 46 points in 60 games. He's tied for 9th in points among all NHL defensemen. First in points among NHL rookies. That's because Celebrini also got injured, so he didn't play a full slate of games. Tied for 20th in assists among all NHL players. He is the first rookie defenseman to score 40 assists in fewer than 60 games since Nick Lidstrom in 1991-1992. Is Lane Hudson, is he projecting to be a top 3 point producing defenseman in the league, or is this just adrenaline rookie season excitement and he settles for a lower pace?
Well,
I know it's hard to tell,
it's
but this is
such a question. Look, the fact of the matter is the Habs are hoping that he's a top 5 player for the rest of his career, right? If you're trending on top 10 this year, you're hoping that he, in his prime, because he's not even close to his prime yet, he's going to be top 5. I think Habs fans should be excited. Forget the projections. Forget where you think he's going to be. They should just be excited. They have somebody that's dynamic. He sees the ice so well. He sees people on breakaways. He throws them from his own end to a breakaway on the other side. It's fun to watch. We were talking about Makar during the Four Nations, how impressed we were with Makar's stick handling. He's not Makar, but he still has a lot of good traits that could get him top 5 points, I think. Like the vision. The vision's incredible.
I was expecting, we said it on the pod. I thought he'd get 50 points if he started the year. I didn't think he would look this good though.
Yeah.
He actually looks really, really good.
Hasn't really hit that rookie wall yet. Or
Well,
he hit it for a
you know
bit.
what?
he hit it for a bit, but he didn't. It didn't
bounced back.
But I
yeah.
do think, and you could see it in Mishkov as well, the Four Nations break helped a lot of these rookies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Mishkov is also looking really good since that break.
Yeah.
I think people have to stop the comparison with Hudson and just enjoy what he does.
Yeah.
I think it's everybody who does the comparisons that makes this people not hate but like talk negatively about the kid. Like he's doing something that other people can't do. He's good, but stop with the comparisons, and hopefully he can be that number 1 defenseman the Habs were looking for.
All right, Vince. So speaking of point producing players, there are 11. And so this was as of, I believe, Saturday night. 11 NHLers that have 69 points or more so far this season. And here's the list. You tell me which player is surprising or to you at the beginning of the season wouldn't have belonged on this list. Nate McKinnon at 90 points. Leon Draisaitl, 88. Nikita Kucherov, 86. Connor McDavid, 74. Kyle Connor, Mitch Marner, David Pasternak 73, Jack Eichel 70, Jack Hughes 69, Clayton Keller 69, Mikko Rantanen 69.
Who does not belong? Or who would you have thought does not belong?
Clayton Keller.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy who took the next step in his progression with Utah, and really took the initiatives of saying, "This is my team. I'll be the elite superstar on this team." So, listen, but Keller always had it. Like he was very consistent in his. He always had progression in his following years, right? And he came out when he came out of the draft. He came out with high expectations. Started a little slow out of the gate in his first few seasons, but listen, I think Clayton Keller has established himself as an elite player in the NHL.
You want to know what's funny? His shooting percentage is the worst that it's been in 4 years. His shots on goal is tied for the same that it was the last 4 years. And he's on a 94-point pace anyways. So it's quite impressive what he's doing. And the other person that I would have said, maybe Jack Eichel being on that list, but he keeps putting it up ever since he came back from his major injury.
I would have also mentioned Kyle Connor, who's on pace for 99 points. Kyle Connor, you think of him as a goal scorer, maybe not so much a point producer, but that's something as well. All right, so moving on to the next one, Nick. I did mention he would benefit of JT Miller the most. Mika Zibanejad tied for third most points in the NHL since JT Miller joined the New York Rangers with 12 points in 9 games played. Is this just an adrenaline rush, or is Mika Zibanejad officially back? Is he back?
Well, here's the thing, Junior. The second you hear on this podcast, Partial Breakaway podcast,
Fantasy hockey podcast,
that Nick has traded someone away, you instantly know that you have to pick this guy up or trade for him. So Zibanejad is probably the hottest player in the league, not named Roope Hintz, who I also traded away. Roope Hintz, by the way, 8 points in the last 2 games. He has Zibanejad, has 9 points in his last 6 games. He's absolutely on fire. And sometimes it's better just not to freaking make trades. Just stick to your guns, stick to the guys that you started off the year with, and just let it go.
A little bitter.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Every day, Malachias.
All right, Vince, finally some good news coming out of Columbus here. Caden Lidstrom, leading up to the Stadium Series, finally laced up the skates and took some optional skates with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Are we still worried about him? I mean, obviously, everyone's still a little bit worried, but it's nice to see he might actually get some playing time this year.
You always worry about a player this young getting such a drastic injury that kept him out the whole season. But I also think that Columbus is being extra precautious when it comes to Caden Lidstrom. They had a five-step rehab program for him.
Sorry, precautious?
Precautious? No.
Cautious.
Yeah. No.
It's
Precautionary?
you take precaution, but you're cautious.
Precautious. I like that. It's a new word.
We surgeon guys might as well be cautious.
You might as well search. Yeah, exactly.
So they had a five-step rehab program for him with Columbus, and apparently now he's in step 3, which is getting on the ice full gear, skating
I
around.
didn't even know that.
And they said after that, it's they're expecting him to be on stage 4 with no contact skating after seeing the doctor. So he has a doctor's appointment in the next 2 weeks. And I know because I traded a lot
for him
to draft him third overall last year. So I've been keeping a close eye on him. And we're actually talking to Carl. We're a little worried that he wasn't skating yet. But I just think they're being precautious. But we'll see. We'll see. He's not going to play this year, guaranteed. We'll see how the offseason goes and how preseason goes for him next year.
Slow and steady, man. Slow and steady. Nick, off to another 2024 draft pick. No defenseman has hit back-to-back 30-goal seasons in their draft year or draft plus 1 year, except for Zane Parekh. Now, we were all high on him heading into the draft last year. In fact, in terms of fantasy purposes, we all had him, I think, in the top 5. Top 3.
In our Dauber League, DPR League, he was drafted before we got to pick our 7th pick, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
want to remember. I think he went third overall.
He would have been our pick.
He would have been our pick.
Yeah, he would have been our pick. So my question to you is, come the draft, there's always suspicion. Like, can that translate to the NHL? We're still asking the same question. Can it translate? And like, what do you project his ceiling to be? That doesn't mean that the second he steps foot on an NHL ice rink, he'll produce that way, or maybe he will, like a Lane Hudson. But what do you foresee his ceiling to be? Is he really tier 1 defenseman productivity?
Look, it's 19-year-old
make any
kid.
sense.
19-year-old kid is very difficult to project what they're going to be in the NHL. You expect him to be a top power play guy. You expect him to be Calgary's leader on the back end offensively. But you can't. It's hard to say. Is he going to turn into a Quinn Hughes? Is he going to turn into all these comparisons? And like Vince said before, very difficult to assess, especially at 19 years old. But what's not difficult is the fact that he had 96 points last year, and he's at 92 points this year.
12 games less.
12 games less. You're talking about a person that keeps improving. That's what you want to see. You want to see progression. You don't want to see taking a step back. So for me, anybody that drafted Zane Parekh is...
he's actually at 93 because he scored his 30th tonight.
So again, though, when you see progression, that's what you want to see. So in this particular case, I think Zane Parekh is looking like a star. And that he's going to be a star. He's going to be an offensive defenseman. How high can the ceiling go? Time will tell, but first power play unit on Calgary, I think that's for sure.
So in a dynasty league, if you think people are not sold on him, do you invest big time on him, trying to acquire him?
Well, I don't know how people cannot be sold on him unless they're desperate to win this year and they're trying to sell
if you
have a piece that you could give.
If you think he's a star, then he's worth the investment. I'm sure maybe somebody might be willing that might not think he's a star. Anyhow, to you, he projects to be a star defenseman. That's great news for Parekh owners, and I tend to agree. And I think Vince, you agree as well.
Yeah, with Peterka, 100%.
All right, and our last question of the Odd Man Rush, we're going to go to another prospect this year. This time, it's a prospect that is draft eligible. Michael Misa is trending to finish as the most productive CHL player of 2025. I believe the second half of the season has been among the best in I don't know how long. He is projected to be a top 4, but does he have a case to potentially be number 1?
I don't think so. I think,
and in fantasy hockey, would you draft him number 1 or 2?
I think Schaefer has the upper hand as number 1 just because he's a defenseman, and what he can do offensively, there's not many that can do that at the defensive position. So I think that's what gives him the upper hand. Listen, go ahead.
We were speaking before the podcast as well. We had Higgins
and
Misa and Schaefer as the top 3. Martone for us is further back already. I mean, these are still preliminary.
Even me, some of these players, if they were in last year's draft, besides Schaefer, the other 2 wouldn't be making the top 10.
Frondell is making a huge push. We spoke about him last week, but now more and more, I looked into it a little bit. He's making a huge push for top 4.
And leading the points in the CHL, it's nice. I mean, you look at some names last year. Furcus was the one who led the CHL, and he got drafted in the second round.
Seattle.
Then Connor Bedard, Wyatt Johnson, Cédric Deserieux, Marco Rossi, Jason Robertson, and that's when...
So there's some pretty prominent names, but there's also some names
Jason Halwalk, Sam Steele, Connor Garland, Dylan Strome, Connor Brown. So I wouldn't put too much stake in how many points he's getting in juniors. But I think he's in the right draft here to get drafted high. And then it's from there, these guys are 18. We don't know how they're going to adapt to the NHL life, how they're going to adapt to the NHL speed. So,
but in fantasy, you're looking at these four guys as your top four. Right
for
now.
sure.
Do you think
your top three are Schaefer, Higgins, and Misa, and Misa and Higgins are closer than
And
any of them are to Schaefer.
And like you said, Frendel as well is
He's
right
getting
up there.
up there.
Do you think Misa, had he been drafted last year, now we know Demidov would have been ahead of him, right? But do you think he's number 3 forward on that list?
Misa for last year? No, he's
Ahead of
not.
Lidstrom?
He doesn't even crack the top
Ahead
10.
of Seneki?
No, he doesn't crack the top
I
10.
think he should be ahead of.
Wow.
Hold on,
I
are you
think
talking
I
about redraft now? Because
Misa-
Seneki,
From
should
what we
have
know
dropped.
now, what we know now,
Right.
What we know now, if Misa was in that draft, I think he's the 3rd best forward in that draft.
Why
well,
would
Catton is there.
Yeah, he
So-
also went like 9. Yeah,
That's
we
what-
really like Cat. I really like Catton too.
But
right?
but you should redraft it the way it is, right? If we know what we know now,
yeah, exactly.
then those guys wouldn't be there.
Yeah, Bullion would be higher. Up as
Bouillon
well.
would be higher. Well, actually, Bouillon was high on it for us, anyways. We just watched him fall. But I think that Catton would be right there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Misa would. I personally don't think he would have hit the top 10 Misa if he was in this.
Quickly, your
last
1, 2,
year's
3 of right now as we speak of this year's draft, fantasy purposes. So if you're drafting in a dynasty league, who's your number 1, 2, 3?
They go first. I just want to see something.
I still think Schaefer should be your one.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's so difficult to find these defensemen, but it's also a little bit riskier to find these defensemen to actually hit. I think you go with Schaefer number 1. But Higgins still, to me, I know that you guys have dropped him. I still think he's number 2. I would probably put Misa 3 and Frendel 4, like I said before.
Yeah, if you look at it now, San Jose for sure. If San Jose gets the first, it's gonna
Wow.
be Schaefer for sure.
If San Jose gets the
Right now,
first.
Chicago's in second. So I mean, how can you not say? How can you not take Higgins and have Bedard and Higgins as your 1-2 punch in center?
Sam Dickinson and Schaefer for years to come.
And Cangoni,
Cagnoni, yeah.
Cagnoni also for San Jose.
Yeah, okay,
But
he's lesser.
and the third overall
To me.
pick is Nashville. So I mean, you pick up a Miso in Nashville, you're laughing,
Wow.
right? So that's
Third overall is Nashville.
That's what it looks like right now. So.
How are they falling?
Yeah.
That does it for our 10 statement segment of the Odd Man. Are they picking Benoit?
He won't make it.
Can you go higher?
Yeah.
What's next, Vince?
Oh, let me go back to the list here.
Oh, I can't wait for this. This is going to be jam-packed.
Oh, we're doing rumblings.
Oh,
Do we-
baby.
Do we have a soundtrack for rumblings?
We can put whatever we want.
No, it's not rumblings.
No.
No, that's a waiver wire.
That's a waiver wire.
Because we're so money, you know?
All right, so in our rumblings, basically, hey,
You know what? A lot of players that were traded in this segment do make a lot of money.
so in our rumblings, we'll just I'll just blurt out some trades.
Let me talk to you.
That's what we put on.
I'll just blurt out some trades that have been done in our fantasy leagues, either LPHL, Lama, or whatnot. And then from there, you guys will discuss and let me know what you guys think about the trades that have been done. So we'll start with LPHL trades. So listener Bamia acquired Fiala and a 4th round pick from Ottawa, which is listener Tino Mayo, for Thomas Chabot, Dawson Mercer, and a 3rd round pick. Are we fetching that Dawson Mercer can become a top 6 player, or that Kevin Fiala will drop out of the top 6?
Yeah,
Junior.
go ahead. I think Dawson Mercer is a trade candidate for the New Jersey Devils. I think if they go acquire someone at this deadline, he's probably going to be going the other way. I have always loved Kevin Fiala. The same reasons I hesitate with Buchnevich is the same reasons I hesitate with Fiala. Just a consistency missing. They could be really good or they could just disappear. But for what he gave up, listener Bamia, Montreal, I think Kevin Fiala and the 4th round pick is worth it. And look, listener Tino Mayo, like he gets a 3rd round pick, Dawson Mercer and Thomas Chabot. Thomas Chabot has been much better this year. Not necessarily elite, but in a league with 4 dressed defensemen and 11 teams, He's not a bad player to have if you have the cap space for him.
It's with Thomas Shabbat. I'm guessing it's still the same problem. It's his salary compared to the points that he's putting.
Yeah,
in.
if you expect him to get maybe 40, 50 points, okay, maybe you could pull that off, But if you want more than that,
Nick, what do you think about this trade?
Well, to me, I think the best player in this trade is Kevin Fiala. Yes, I agree with you. He runs hot and cold. His salary is 7.875 for another 4 years. But let's be honest. The year before that, he had 73 points. The year before that, 72 points. The year before that, 85 points. So we're talking about a player that although this year he's on pace for less, he's only on pace for 56. I think you bought low at this point. Shabbat at $8 million is pricey. I know defensemen are hard to come by, so there's a value there either way. But I like this trade for listener Bamia. I think that he's going to enjoy Fiala moving forward, even at this price range.
We have a trade to announce.
So the next,
another one.
So the next trade, Nick, our co-hosts, acquires Sam Bennett, Robert Thomas, and a 4th round pick in 2027. If you guys don't know, Nick is first in our league. And in return for this, he gave up Roope Hintz, who got 10 points in 2 games, Troy Terry, who got 6 points in 2 games, and a 3rd round pick in 2028. So, listen, I'll start with Junior and see what you think about this trade.
Excuse me. I thought this was a trade that could wait. Honestly, I thought it could have been an off-season move because for this season it seemed a little bit more lateral. Roope Hintz had already started picking it up slightly. He had just started picking it up. Troy Terry has been his usual Troy Terry self right before you traded him. So I just thought it could wait, but I do think you do gain from this in terms of you get younger. I think Robert Thomas could be more consistent than Roope Hintz. I've always really liked Robert Thomas. So, yeah, I'm just going to say that the only negative is I think it could have waited, and it would have benefited you maybe to keep things as it was for this year. But I think in the long run, you're gonna really like this deal.
And if I could read Nick's mind.
Well, in retrospect,
hindsight is 2020, right?
Well, hindsight is 2020. Obviously, nobody knew that Roope Hintz would come out this week and
He took it personally, Nick.
take 2 games. Yeah, he took it personally.
He's never been traded before.
And if any of you guys know, because you watch this podcast, you would have known that Roope Hintz would blow up the second I traded him away. Look, for me, like you said, I do get younger. The salary is the same. Honestly, the 4th and 3rd round picks, you could wipe them. Doesn't matter to me. Yeah. Even Troy Terry and Sam Bennett, you could pretty much wipe it for me, because if you look at the waiver wire on LPHL, you would actually see that there's about 10 other people that do Troy Terry's points
for less money.
Yeah. So for me, Troy Terry and Sam Bennett were just whatever. The real trade was Robert Thomas from Roope Hintz. I've had Roope Hintz for quite a long time. You're right. Maybe he could have waited as a trade, but Roope Hintz just gets injured so often. I've had him for so long. I'm getting a little bit tired of him. Plus, somebody on this podcast convinced me that Wyatt Johnston has taken over the top line of Dallas, and maybe not this year. Maybe in the near future he will.
Roope Hintz is only playing 15 minutes. It's a good thing that Wyatt Johnson is taking these minutes, so he's more relaxed, less pressure, and he could play, his elite self.
So I do think this is a lateral move. I think it's a trade that's very, very fair. Unfortunately, Roope Hintz blew up the second I traded him away, but I think it's a very fair trade for listener AJ and myself.
Wyatt Johnston, 3 power play goals, all assisted by Roope Hintz in a 6-3 win over St. Louis.
My only thing with this is Robert Thomas is more of an assist guy than a goal scorer, so that's the only thing that would worry me more, where you would lose out with Roope Hintz. But Robert Thomas has a better chance of playing 82 games than Roope Hintz has playing 50 games.
Although Robert Thomas gets injured as well, right? So what I think 25 years old is the big difference.
We have a trade to announce.
Last year he was much better at shooting
No.
and scoring, but
Second to last
follow
trade,
through.
which involves Junior, the co-host. He acquired Mitch Marner and a second-round pick in 2024. In return for that, he gave up Jordan Kyrou, Nico Hischier, a first-round pick, which is a top 4 this year, and a third-round pick. I'll start with you, Nick. What do you think?
I don't know what people might think about this one, but I think that it's fair return. Mitch Marner, we're talking about fantasy leagues that are cap leagues. So Mitch Marner is going to cost probably $14 million next year. Jordan Kyrou, Nico Hischier together probably cost
15.
15. So pretty much the same, right? But you have obviously more players there. A first round pick, which is a lottery pick in our league, and a third round pick. I find that it's fair value. I like it. I like it for both players. You get the better player in the end. So you could, if people think of it as, oh well, you win the trade. Yeah, maybe you win the trade. But if this turns into a Schaefer, first overall pick plus Nico Hischier plus Kyrou, I think it's fair.
It's important to keep in mind. So loose pucks it's a bit more of like a deep keeper league than it is a dynasty league. So you're not stuck to anybody you don't want to keep. At the end of the year, you're allowed to drop as long as by the end of the draft you end up with 30 players. And we also do have a lottery draft, a lottery. So the bottom 3 teams get mixed up, and anyone from the bottom 3 can win the lottery. Vince had that pick, so it was Vince's pick that I had. And Vince obviously is not going to tank or lose on purpose when he doesn't have his own pick. So he was climbing up, and it looked to me, I projected it as being as the 4th pick. I think because the person I traded him to, which was AJ Halifax, he's already tanking, trying to catch up to Vince. So he guaranteed himself basically at worst picks 3 and 4 of the next draft. But from my end, if Ken Johnson and Dylan Genther didn't do what they did this year, I wouldn't have pulled this off. That assured me that I had the depth to let go of guys like Hischier and Kyrou. And I got the star in Marner, which I think I needed.
And just a reminder to our listeners, so Nick is in first in our league. Junior is in third, trying to climb up to second and to catch up to Nick. And the next trade is from the London listener Umbi, who is in second and made up quite some space between him and Nick. I think at one point it was an 80-point lead Nick had, and now Nick had, and now I think it's about 30 or just under 30. So the trade listener Umbi made was with myself. He acquired Seth Jones and 2 fifth-round picks, and in return, he sent me a second-round pick, Georgiev and Marchessault, who he basically both included them because he needed the salary dump. So, Nick, we'll start with you. What do you think?
I think it's a good trade. I think the Seth Jones move is very, very good for anybody that is an owner of Seth Jones and you're looking to move him. If you take a look at where he was, yes, he was getting top power play in Chicago. He was getting top everything in Chicago. Chicago was not very good. Their power play was not very good, even with Bedard there. I mean, I'll look it up now, but
You see Bedard struggling this year because...
But he has nobody around him.
Exactly, because
right?
of the lack of talent around him. And it's not only Bedard. Is when you have such lack of talent around you, there's only so much you can do because teams plan for you because they have to plan for nobody
Look
else.
at the difference it made in Clayton Keller. You get a Genter, you get a Cooley. Now it's a little bit more distributed. They can't just focus on Keller,
Exactly.
right? The opponent. So it helps. It helps.
Yeah.
And I see it in Suzuki as well in Montreal.
Yeah.
Chicago is actually 6th in the power play this year. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. 6th place in power play, 26.2% conversion rate. Now, he's going to a team like Florida, who there's a lot more depth in Florida. So it could be a detriment and it could be a good thing as well. Florida is 22.8% on the power play, but I'm not guaranteed that Seth Jones is going to be power play 1 on that team. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics, right? He's going to lose ice time. He doesn't have to play all situations like he did in Chicago. Maybe that helps him, maybe it doesn't.
Right.
I think it's a risk. It's definitely a risk that listener Umbi did. Is it a good risk? Time will tell.
He basically he had Luke Hughes in his lineup, and now he has the option of putting Seth Jones instead of Luke Hughes in his lineup. That's basically.
I think if you're comparing it to Luke Hughes, maybe it's.
To me, it's an upgrade, not because Seth Jones is better than Luke Hughes, but because Luke Hughes will not get that time with Hamilton there in New Jersey.
Actually, probably next episode we'll probably talk about how Luke Hughes is injured.
Oh.
He got hurt last game. It didn't look too good. There's no news yet, but he did get injured last game.
According to Daily Faceoff, Seth Jones takes the second power play. But the second power play is Evan Rodriguez, Anton Lundell, Luosterainen, and Samoskevich.
Yeah.
Nothing to write home about.
As the Matthew Tkachuk loss is huge for the Florida
But I
Panthers.
still
That's a
think
big
he'll
hole.
push himself up to that first power play with Ekblad, so we'll see.
Look, he was trending 53 points. He was projected. He's on pace for 53 points, which should be like his second best total ever on a Chicago team that was like depleted and didn't have much. But I still don't think going to Florida is going to make him a 70-point defenseman. You know what I mean? But given what it cost him, which was Marchessault was having an underwhelming season and a second-round pick, I think it was a risk worth taking. And for Vince, especially knowing that you think Nashville will bounce back next year, getting that second-round pick and Marchessault in particular, I think it works for both parties.
And, like, I'm not keen on Georgia, but who knows where he's going to be signed next year? He's a UFA, so we'll see.
KHL.
KHL is.
I didn't
better,
even mention
just drop him.
Georgiev because to me he's droppable.
He's droppable.
And
he's
so-
not even close.
That is it for rumblings. Let's hear you again, Bettman.
We have a trade to announce.
That was like I don't know how there were so many trades.
You know what? It's fun, though. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like I said before, in fantasy hockey, you're talking about trades, you're talking about drafts, and you're talking about winning it. That's the most fun aspect
you
of
go.
all those things. So, do you mind, sir, playing our waiver wire pickup song?
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
I don't know if it's the right one to play this week.
Here comes the money.
I could say that because I came close.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. We
Suck.
we did not do it again. Our waiver wire pickups, we rely on Vince usually to show us how to do these waiver wire pickups,
yeah.
and he has lost his edge.
Ooh, wow. After 1 week, just lost his edge.
So basically, he's in the lost column. Taylor Hall was his pick. You know what? It was a very good pick. Taylor Hall was playing on the top line, but 1 point in 3 games is considered a loss.
The week started so nice.
No, he had 4 games. Nick.
Oh, sorry, 1 point in 4 games.
That's even
It's
more
because
of
he
a
was
loss.
playing
Sorry.
tonight and his game wasn't finished,
Okay.
but he didn't get a point.
He got nothing. So that's a loss. But it's still, Vince is still the best out of all of us. 10 wins, 4 losses. I went with Marco Casper, who was playing top line and an outdoor game that looked really good. But you don't get points for looks, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why I'm not in first place here. He only got 1 point in 3 games, so that's a loss. I'm at 4 wins, 9 losses, and 1 push for the season. This gentleman to my left creates his own numbers and completely fakes him out. But Marcus Johansson had 2 points in 4 games. We're calling that a push. He had 5.
First of all,
He's
he
at
was
5
5%
wins.
rostered. 5% rostered.
You're muted. 5 wins. This is my segment. 5 wins, 6 losses, and 3 pushes. Guys, collectively, we're at 19 wins, 17 losses, and 4 pushes. It's not the greatest. I think we need to come up with a better formula for our listeners next season, or just stop counting because it's not looking good.
Hey, if it's
but
not-
hopefully, we provide you good quality information for the other segments and not this one.
If it's not good, they could just choose to do the opposite.
That might actually help. Whatever I pick or Junior picks, please ignore.
I like that.
Vince,
Yeah.
You picked. Yeah, I know. Okay, that doesn't matter.
It's okay.
You picked this week Alex Vlasic, 33%.
Defenseman. Every time one of us picked a defenseman, it always went downhill.
Yeah, but my idea here is that I think you picked him because A, they're playing 4 times this week, and
Exactly.
B, Seth Jones is Gonzo's.
There you go.
So I think this is very, very
And
smart and
when
astute.
Seth Jones was injured, Vlasic did pretty well on the power
was
play.
the one who took over the power play. So, in my eyes, this is what it is. I took Vlasic. 4 games. Once again, I always go with teams that play 4 games. His schedule is not so bad, but I mean, when you're Chicago, you're always playing a team that's better than you, unless you're playing San Jose or someone else. So, but obviously, it had Seth Jones trade had a lot to do with this pickup. I think he's going to get the PP1. He was putting up points when Seth Jones wasn't there, so we're going to roll the dice on him.
All right. And just to be clear, Chicago is playing Utah, Vegas.
No, wrong week, Nick.
Oh, am I on the wrong week? I'm so sorry. Maybe that's why I suck at this. LA, Ottawa, Utah, and Nashville. I got one of them.
Yeah,
right.
you got around it, right?
So interesting games this week for Chicago. Next, we have Junior, and Junior goes out and picks Trevor Moore. So you know that this is not the player you should be picking. Trevor Moore plays for LA. And why did you make this pick? 40% owned, by the way.
So he plays 4 games this week. By the way, for the head-to-head matchups, he also does play on a Sunday. He plays set back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, so that could be very valuable as well.
He plays against Chicago, St. Louis twice, and then Vegas.
And as of late, Trevor Moore has been on not that great of much of a heater, but he is on a line with Dano.
Ooh, Dano, number
Which
one
I
Been
center
on
in
line with
Montreal.
Dano since forever. But okay, sure.
And Fogley,
Yeah,
which helped you get a win one week.
I know. So yeah.
No, they mixed up the lines, and basically, I see them playing Vegas on Sunday, and I think he's going to get at least a point on against Vegas because he's going to be playing as the best line, which will give him more scoring opportunity. But also, they play St. Louis twice, not a team that is sturdy defensively. That's being maybe putting it nicely. So I do think there's opportunity for points. They're a team that the scoring is pretty spread out. It's not just Kopitar or just Kempe or just Fiala getting points. So Trevor Moore started off injured, and I think he's slowly finding his footing. And I believe he's poised to have a successful second half of the season. And it starts next week, baby.
All right. So nobody cares about that, but I went with Dylan Strome. Dylan Strome? No. Ryan Strome.
As I said, Dylan Strome is less than 50% roster.
Man, he's having-
Ryan Strome.
Things are so bad, he's trying to cheat.
Ryan Strome is 17% rostered, ladies and gentlemen. 17%. But Ryan Strome is playing 4 games this week. And some of those games are against St. Louis, against the Islanders. He also has Edmonton, which is not necessarily the most sturdy defensively, and Vancouver. He's been on a bit of a heater lately. So that was my take here. And he's playing top line with Troy Terry. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some points out of Dylan Strome this week.
I like that thinking, Nick. I don't know where you got it from, but I like that thinking.
I learned me. I learned. Okay, guys. This week there are only one team there is only one team that plays 2 games. And that is the Utah Hockey Club. So Utah only plays 2 games, so try to avoid that team as much as possible, although Clayton Keller is still someone hard to bench. The teams that are playing 4 games is Anaheim, Buffalo, Chicago, Dallas, LA, Islanders, Rangers, Flyers, Sharks, Seattle, Washington, Tampa, Jets. If you didn't get all that, don't worry about it. You could always rewind. It's a podcast. Moving on.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling.
All right, guys, let's update the standings here on our league. Basically, Vince is still ahead with over 100 points. Nobody cares. Team Nick is in second place and Team Junior is in third place.
Team Junior caught up to Team Nick at one point. this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, because I got like a 42-point night or something. It
That's
was
right.
ridiculous.
We're only 13 points difference, which is actually quite fantastic.
So it's a great battle for the last place spot.
Great battle for second place, yes. One by one we drop, and one we
by
draw our new
one.
team. I don't know who wrote this.
Who wrote that?
That's only Junior.
What? Why is "bye" spelled like that? This is probably
Bye,
from-
bye, 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 bye. That was the last week's episode. Go and listen to it, guys. All right. So, guys, who wants to do drops?
All right, Ron Burgundy.
Ooh, drops.
I am in last place, so I get to go first.
That is correct, sir. You are in last.
But I
You're sticking standing pat?
yeah, I think I'm gonna stand pat for now. Yeah.
Okay, I have no choice. Matthew Tkachuk looks like he might be done for the season. I have no choice but to remove Matthew Tkachuk from my team in order to do a claim. Is he really going to be an LTIR?
Matthew Tkachuk?
He is on LTIR, but is he done for the season?
Yeah.
They're going to bring him back for the playoffs, and
Yeah,
that's it, right?
exactly. They're going to pull a little Vegas.
Pull a little
But
Vegas.
Vegas, but I really do believe Matthew Tkachuk was injured. We saw it in the Four Nations, so
And he still tried playing on it.
Yeah,
I wonder
we're
if
gonna-
that, set him back
Selfish.
at all.
they're going to prolong this as much as they can.
Apologies.
Oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure we lost a bunch of listeners last week when you started playing O Canada on this.
Oh, yeah?
podcast.
Well, that's a shame, huh?
It's it's a shame for us.
No.
We need to keep the listeners as long as possible.
Okay. Well, Florida's
Oh, well,
they're
Wumbi
already
just
in.
made everything fall. Junior just made everything fall.
But I feel like this is a weekly occurrence, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, whenever we have this segment.
just
Just pick a card, damn it.
All right. Okay. Wait, I don't want to look.
Yeah. Just pick a card.
Okay, I'm gonna go with.
You have two of them. Oh, is he gonna go Roope?
Roope Hintz.
Wow! What a way to redeem myself. Now that I'm gonna pick up Roope,
Let's,
you're gonna see he's gonna do
just double-
absolutely nothing. I'm double checking now. Actually, guys, believe it or not, nobody owns anybody.
Oh, you can
Not
even
even
go White
Ottinger?
Johnson.
Oh no! Wait.
No, I own White Johnson, don't I?
Nobody owns anyone.
No.
Dallas was empty. I think this is huge.
Oh, because you had high skin in at one point.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, Nick, you have Ottinger. So you'll have a double.
Because I don't have goalies listed here, so I'll have both Dallas players. Yeah, you're absolutely right, guys. This is very difficult to say.
Oh, you have a lot of choices.
There's choices here.
Yeah, definitely choices.
So we spoke about Roope Hintz, right? He's absolutely on fire. We spoke about Wyatt Johnston. He's absolutely on fire, and Jason Robertson is absolutely on fire. So it's gonna be tough for me to pick here, but I think Jason Robertson's might be the way to go.
Ooh.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd go White Johnson after his hat trick of today, but you know.
Yeah, but even with the hat trick for today, Robertson has been 9 points in his last 4 games.
It's your team, my friend.
It's tough. It's tough.
I don't think you could go wrong. I mean, they all get points simultaneously. It's not like you're choosing between Stankoven and those guys, or you know,
Hintz has 11 points in his last 4 games.
even Matt
That's what I
Duchene
said.
wouldn't be a bad candidate.
This is not easy.
I think it's really easy.
I think it's taking longer
you
than
can't go. You
expected.
can't go wrong.
Well, I could go wrong because if you don't know who I am, anybody I pick will automatically do horrible next week. In this league, goals are worth 2.
Correct.
Assists are worth 1. And Wyatt Johnston currently has more goals than Jason Robertson, but he's also playing third line. Yeah.
Like today, his hat trick, all 3 goals were on the power play.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go with Jason Robertson
Nice.
and hope it doesn't bite me. And I mean, it's hard for it to bite me, right? I mean, the guy is
You can't do it now.
absolute stardom. All right.
Wow.
Done.
Vince,
Who's
are
next,
you
Vince?
doing anything?
I don't know. I'm hurting. Quinn Hughes is injured. Roman
You have a 100-point
Yossi
lead.
is injured. Sanderson is injured. But I have time to be patient with these guys. So I'm going to drop Jake Wallman because he like drastically slowed down and fell off the...
He hasn't done anything
No,
lately.
he fell off the... He completely fell off. I don't know what he fell off of, but well, you don't see him anymore. So I'll just...
Cliff or
whatever you want him to fall off of. But yeah, I'll take Jake Wallman out of my team and...
What about Wallman falling off a wall?
a high wall.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. No, Jake has not been doing very well.
No.
He's has 0 points in his last 3 games. I mean, I was looking at this guy as a savior for me during the year, and all of a sudden he's turned into a pumpkin. Clock hit midnight,
let's
I
just
guess.
pick Florida and get Seth Jones back. So it usually
let him
happens.
pick. Don't make him look.
You should go for the beginning. Let's go for a bit of the this one right here. This one right here. Good. Yellow.
Oh, shit.
Dun, dun, dun.
He dropped the defenseman? Oh, so he's getting
Dun,
Leno.
dun,
The
dun.
lane train.
I think Mike Matheson would look good on my team. I'm kidding, guys. I got Montreal Canadiens.
Guys, I'm sorry. Montreal cannot be selected. Nick Suzuki and Caulfield are both taken. Let's try this again.
Well, no.
Oh, thank
dude.
God. Because that would have been the worst thing ever. The worst thing ever.
Nick was just jealous.
That's a beige card this time, ladies and gentlemen. Minnesota Wild.
Vince, you have Boldy. I don't think there's anybody else on that team. I dropped
you sure?
I dropped Kaprasov.
We're
So.
checking now.
I would check now just to make sure.
Boldy, and that is it.
Boldy in
Minnesota is eligible.
Let me go see who the defensemen are because I'm not.
Who? Faber?
Besides Spurgeon,
Favor.
Faber?
yeah, it's got to be Faber, I guess. But yeah, so we're not. It's a no-brainer. Even though they're struggling with all the injuries, we're gonna go with Faber.
He looks good. Doesn't he look good?
I was really impressed with him in the Four Nations, especially.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about him. Didn't get to see him a lot, but in the Four Nations, he really impressed me.
But Minnesota has very good Faber, Bouillon, Yerchek.
Kivi Harju.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's more of a long
Yeah,
shot still,
exactly.
but
I
promising.
just find that Minnesota has a good future ahead of them. For this year, they're still fighting for a potential playoff spot. I look at them to be candidates to pick up some guys that could help them on the penalty kill because their penalty kill is atrocious.
am I
well,
putting?
we'll get to that because in the next segment,
There's another segment.
Yeah, according to this is why I tell you, Junior's the worst.
Why
when it
is there
comes to
another
this.
segment?
All right, let's go. Close this up.
someone wasn't listening during the intro. I think.
Well, you guys didn't write it.
What do you mean?
Oh, the trade baits. Okay, we could keep this short.
Yeah, it's in the show. All right, so let's go through the trades that happened this week. And you know what? Since we just spoke of Minnesota, we'll start right there. Minnesota acquires Gustav Nyquist for a second-round pick from the Nashville Predators. Does Nyquist have any value here? And who from Nashville gets more of a chance now that Nyquist is gone? Start with
Nyquist has value
Vince.
because he's playing on the first line because Kaprasov is injured. So I think he has a little bit of fantasy value now.
Zuccarello got pushed down, so
Yeah,
he still
exactly.
got a point last game, but that's something to keep an eye on.
Or else I would. It's not something I wouldn't go out and trade Nyquist.
Just see if he's a waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do.
and Nashville. No,
Nashville. I mean, man, this team is really bad. Like Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault is their first line. O'Reilly, Sissons, Cole Smith,
Colton Sissons and Cole Smith.
Yeah, that's their second
Wow.
line. Then Novak, Evangelista, Englund, and I don't even know who the fourth line is. Like, no, I don't think there's anybody here. Listen, this
They're depleted though.
Cole Smith could maybe be that, but like I wouldn't even take a chance on waiver. I'd wait a few games to see who gets hot and then maybe pick them up.
Justin Barron is their second power play defenseman quarterbacking.
There you go.
So that gives you a little bit of an idea.
All right. Then we had the trade between Colorado and New York Rangers. The New York Rangers acquired DeHaan, Parsonen, a second and a fourth,
Why are we talking about this trade?
and traded away Lindgren, VC, and Kempf.
Where's my Morgan Riley trade?
Well, we'll talk
Never
about
added
that.
that.
We didn't add that. Anything
Wow.
noteworthy from this trade of Colorado and the New York Rangers?
No.
No, move on.
We already spoke of the Seth Jones trade of Seth Jones' value in Florida. So he was acquired by the Florida Panthers along with a 4th round pick in exchange for Spencer Knight, who was once projected to be an elite goaltender, and a 2026 first round pick. We spoke enough of Seth Jones. Let's focus here on Spencer Knight and what that means for the goalie situation in Chicago.
Well, because we clip this a lot, I do want to say that Vince did mention that with Seth Jones leaving, Vlasic is most likely going to take over the top power play role. So keep an eye on Vlasic for potential a little bit boost of fantasy impact. As opposed to Spencer Knight, well, this maybe is a good move for them. He hasn't been doing great, but I think he could battle for a 1A, 1B spot here in Chicago.
I think Chicago has nothing to lose with this trade. With Spencer Knight, he came in the NHL with very high hopes. They have 2 young goalies also. They have Comesso, who they drafted, and last year I think they drafted, was it Harbaugh or Gajan?
Czech. I think they have Gajan.
Gajan. Harbaugh is with Utah and Gajan is with Chicago.
We make this mistake every
Yeah,
every
it's-
podcast.
Either way, you
Yeah.
can never have too many
goalies, right?
Goalies, right?
So, but that's about it.
Like Mrazek and Soderblom,
Soderblom.
and now you put Knight in the mix, right? Like,
I mean, those guys.
are any of them really much better than the other?
No.
I think they're just a bridge for maybe
For one of the
Knight
young
and
guys to
whoever,
come up.
or we'll see how that goes. Okay, so there's some new names on the trade bait board this week. I'll start with you, Vince. Brayden Schenn. If he leaves St. Louis, does he gain in fantasy value? I know it depends where he ends up, but obviously we're thinking of contenders. Right?
Wherever he ends up, he does not gain in fantasy value because whatever team is going to take Brayden Schenn, they are not taking him to fill the number 1 or number 2 center role. They are taking him to fill up the number 3 center role and being that responsible defensive player who could play top 6 if someone gets injured. But or else he doesn't become more fantasy relevant because I think whatever team he's going to go to, he's going to be the 3rd person at center.
Okay, Nick. One of your players was suddenly included here in the trade bait board. His name is JJ Peterka. I'm not sure why Buffalo would want to trade him, but there is speculation that he could be available, but the price is really, really high.
Well, I mean, I think it's crazy talk to have Buffalo give away a young player like this,
It's
especially
not like they've done it before.
a 23-year-old player playing on their top line, playing 18 minutes a night, by the way. His shooting percentage is right about his average, maybe a tad higher. But he's pacing for a 66-point pace, 20-goal, 24-goal, 25-goal by the end of the season. This is a guy that I think in the future is going to be a 30-goal player when he hits his prime at 25, 26 years old. He's only 23. So I think it's a little bit crazy talk, but I'm assuming that they're looking for a top player in return.
I'm not sure, right? It
Look,
depends
he's
who
an
you're selling
RFA,
it to.
so are they thinking maybe that he's going to qualify at 5.5 or something like that? I really don't understand this unless they want a culture change in the room.
Maybe.
Vince, Alex Tuch is supposedly available from what we hear on social media, which is obviously the end all, be all, end all. Anyhow, Tampa Bay is the most interested in Alex Tuch. Very high asking price, obviously, with 1 year and a half left on a $4.75 million deal. What do we think of Alex Tuch leaving Buffalo?
I think if he leaves Buffalo, whoever gets him gets a type of Sam Bennett type of playoff performer. I think he's got the size, he's got that sandpaper play to him that could benefit a lot of teams in the playoffs. And he's got a little bit more offensive skills than Sam does. So listen, if it's Tampa Bay, man, that'd be a nice little fit for Tampa Bay. But it won't be hard to trade him. That's
LA
for sure.
too, I think,
Yeah.
was another team.
It won't be tough to trade him because his salary isn't high, and you keep him for the year after also. But I think the asking price will be
Yeah, both asking price for the guys from Buffalo are really, really high.
They're not going to give anybody for free. So
Yeah. But I mean, I think someone might pull the trigger on Tuch. Nick, we'll end it with you. This player and the Vancouver Canucks can't seem to be to find an agreement on a contract extension. The problem seems to be the length of the contract and not the money, with Vancouver supposedly offering him a 5-year deal. Brock Boeser.
Ever since this kid's rookie season, I was in love with him.
You had high hopes for him this year.
High hopes. Well, last year he scored 40 goals.
Yeah, it was a tumultuous season for him.
Sure. But 40 goals is still something special to do, right? That's not necessarily, it might be the highest he ever does, but it doesn't mean that he's not a good goal scorer. He has proven that he could put the puck in the net. But don't you start losing a little bit of faith right now? You know, he's never had more than a 75-point season. And he only hit 73 in his rookie year and 74 last year. 72 3 years before that. So you're starting to really feel like he's not going anywhere. He's kind of stuck in that flow. So is he still a top 6 player? Sure, he's a top 6 player. I just don't see him as a consistent enough player to go out there and buy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As a fantasy manager?
It doesn't. I mean, Vancouver is a mess.
Vancouver is a mess.
Vancouver is a mess. I think a change of scenery will help him, but it's hard to evaluate Vancouver players right now.
With Patterson struggling too, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Well, Pedersen is absolutely horrible.
Oh my gosh,
Absolutely
that's been
horrible.
something
He's killing us.
unbelievable.
in DPR.
Hopefully, he can get something done and get back to the Patterson.
We just got Norris back in DPR.
Yeah.
That's going to really help us at least.
Playoffs next week, boys. Playoffs.
Playoffs.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I am Junior. To my right is Nick. To his right is Vince. This was another jam-packed episode. Do not forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, comment, interact with us on all our social media accounts on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Partial Break Pod. Shout out to Sportira.com who supplies us with our apparel. We should have a store up soon if you want to help support us and purchase the apparel and the accessories. Give them a follow on Instagram at Sportira.apparel. Boys, another one is in the books. Anything to sign off?
No, I mean,
Roope Hintz!
Roope Hintz.
Roope Hintz to the house. Have a good week, everybody.